What's up? It's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I want to talk about the state of the US men's national team heading into September. Now, we still have the September camp coming up, and I'm not going to do a predictions video for that just yet because I feel like we still have a few more things to learn, but taking a general look at the squad, you can start to see how things are looking. I think right now, in terms of the 26-man World Cup squad, we have about 16 locks in the team. I think those are Matt Turner at goalkeeper. He's not for sure the starter yet, but he's for sure going to be on the team. I think that's just about guaranteed. I think Zach Steffen isn't a lock anymore. Just with how many injuries he's had, how many just kind of bad performances he's had at goalkeeper, I wouldn't really call him a lock at this point. I think that might be a good thing. I'll get into that a bit later. Then center back, I think Chris Richards and Walker Zimmerman are for sure locks. They've got to be in the team, and I think Cameron Carter-Vickers is going to be in there as well at some point. Like, you're not going to be able to deny a Champions League center back who's been playing at a really high level. Then at fullback, I think we have Serginho Dest. Even if he's not playing at Barcelona, he's got too much talent. Jedi, easy pick. And Joe Scally, I think, is going to be in the team. He's already been called into the national team multiple times, and I think he's clearly our third best fullback. Then at the six, Tyler Adams and Kellen Acosta, pretty easy picks. Adams has been playing great. Acosta has taken his chances when he's had that role at the backup six. Nobody's really challenged him yet. There might be one coming, but I think no matter what Acosta is going to be in the team. And I'll be honest, he's one of the few players that I've really liked as somebody who's as an on-the-field leader. So I'm okay with Acosta being there no matter what. Then at the 8 and wing, because we've got a bit of crossover there, so I'm just going to run through them all at once. Weston McKennie, he's looking healthy. He actually will be ready for the September camp. Yunus Musa, easy pick. Luca De La Torre. Gio Reyna and Brendan Aronson. Tim Weah looks like he's going to be healthy for it, and Christian Pulisic. I think those seven, you can't really debate any of them at all. And I think nobody's going to be there up top, so I think those are the 16 players who are really locks at the moment. Then we've got about 24-ish on the bubble. There could be more. It's probably a little bit less than this, but we got some players to talk about. At goalkeeper, Zach Steffen, and Steffen is interesting in this group because when we had Zach Steffen in the squad, you couldn't consider bringing Gabriel Slonina. And that's because with Steffen, he was such an injury. He's such an injury risk. Like, he's one of the most injury-prone goalkeepers I've ever seen. And, like, you couldn't afford to not have a good third string because we couldn't guarantee that Steffen would be playing. And suddenly that third string is realistically going to be the backup. But if Steffen's out of the squad, that opens up a spot for potentially Gabriel Slonina. And honestly, if he was healthy, I'd consider Brad Guzan. Just another veteran presence to have in the squad. Like, that's not a bad thing. He's obviously injured, so it doesn't matter right now, but it's something that we could have considered. But with Slovenia, he's definitely an option. Ethan Horvath didn't have the best game, but he had one game in the national team shirt this entire year. Like, listen, I understand the national team performances matter, but at some point, that's such a small sample size that you really can't judge one player off of that one game. And we've seen a lot of good out of Ethan Horvath in his performances. He's starting to become a regular at Luton Town. Sean Johnson is obviously another option, but honestly, I think with Sean Johnson, like, I don't think anybody really wants him to be called up. Like, maybe if you're an NYCFC fan, but, like, you think Berhalter, like, he sees the potential of Ethan Horvath. He's a big fan of Zach Steffen. He sees how good Matt Turner is. Sees the potential of Gabriel Slonina. Like, if Sean Johnson gets called up, it's because somebody else screwed up. It's not going to be because of himself. Which, I mean, that sounds mean to say, but, like, I think Sean Johnson might know that as well. And then, that's my opinion on the goalkeepers. I think Slonina like, he's got so much potential that I'd be willing to give him, like, a spot in this team. It's get him acclimated to a World Cup setting because at the moment it seems like he's going to be our guy in the near future, and I really think getting him this experience could be good. At center back, we have a lot of options. I have like 6 players around the bubble. John Brooks, doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Rumor has that he's going to be going to Mallorca. I wouldn't have even had him on the bubble if he still wasn't on the team. He didn't have a team yet. Because, like, we're at the point where we can't be calling in free agents. But if he's going to be at a La Liga club, like in a top 5 league, like, you definitely have to consider him. Tim Ream, I think people are going a little bit heavy on the Tim Ream hype. I mean, yes, he's starting in the Premier League, but his team allowed 6 goals in 4 games. With him, with that defense, like, they allowed 2 goals in 3 games. Like, 1 clean sheet this entire year. Like, it's impressive that he's starting in the Premier League, but, like, listen, I'm not going to be calling for Timothy Chandler just because of the league he plays in. Joe Scally's not in this team because he's a Bundesliga center back. He's in this team because he's good. And Tim Ream, like, I always thought it was weird that he just got excluded, but I never thought it was a bad thing. If you want to say he's an experienced player, we should call him in, like, that's fair. If you're saying, like, okay, he's got chemistry with Jedi, if we do change our system, I can see him having a role, like, that's fine, but I think just quality-wise, I don't think he's up there with everybody else. James Sands is another player who's on the bubble who I think probably will be added to the team. A couple of really good performances with Rangers. He's going to be a Champions League center back. Have a couple games against a really good Celtic team. Like, there's a lot of good that James Sands is doing, and I think especially with his versatility and ability to play in the midfield, he's probably going to be called up. Then we have Mark McKenzie, who's finally starting to get regular game time, and I'm excited about Mark McKenzie. Like, I'm a big fan of him. Great on the ball, really good athlete, and if he starts to put all the defense, like, starts to really learn the position, like, he has so much potential, and I would love him to be a long-term partner for Chris Richards, because I think he has that ability. Then Eric Palmer-Brown is also in contention. He didn't have the best camp, but as I said before, that was such a small sample size, and to be honest, like that window right after the European season ends, like, that's the least relevant international window ever. Like, so many other teams just coast through that. Like, but he's still a very good player, good on the ball, good athlete. Like, he's somebody else we could like to see, but I think he's probably on the lower end of players we could expect. And then I guess Aaron Long's also in contention, but if he's in the team, like, I think that's a mistake. At fullback, we have three players, I'd say. I don't think Jonathan Gomez is going to get anything, which I think is disappointing. Like Gabriel Slane, I probably would have liked him to get called up, but I don't think that's going to happen. We have Sam Vines. He's been starting to put in some good performances at left back, and I think at this point there's not really much to separate him from Reggie Cannon and DeAndre Yedlin. So just having another natural left back, I think is probably going to be a good idea. So I think Sam Vines is going to get into this team. Then Reggie Cannon, I don't know. I kind of was sticking up for him, but he's been really disappointing. He offers nothing going forward and isn't that reliable defensively. I mean, if he's in the team, it's not great. Like, even as like a right side center back, I don't really want him over other players. Like, I don't think he offers much to this squad. I can see the potential in him, but it's just potential right now. And honestly, I'm not a fan of DeAndre Yedlin, but I think just similar to what I was talking about with Guzan, with Ream, like, just having like a veteran, somebody with World Cup experience, like, I'd bring in DeAndre Yedlin. Honestly, I'd consider Timothy Chandler over DeAndre Yedlin as well, but I think Chandler's out of the team, and this would only be for experience, not because he's a good player. But yeah, I think DeAndre Yedlin is probably going to be in the team. Like, basically, like, we have a 26-man squad right now. Like, we can afford to have like a couple extra players for that's versatility or experience. And I think DeAndre Yedlin's in like that 24, 25, 26th man on this team. I wouldn't have him in the squad, but I think he's going to be there. But I wouldn't have him in the 23, but in the 26, I think he should be there. Also, at the 6, we've got Johnny Cardoso. He's really been impressing in Brazil. Like, he's had a couple of really good performances lately, and I think he might push for a spot. Like, again, I mentioned before, Kellen Acosta's in this team, but I feel like he's kind of like, I don't know, like a default. Nobody's really pushing for that spot. Even when Johnny has gotten time to the national team, I really haven't been that impressed by him. He had a pretty bad Olympic qualifying campaign. I didn't think he was that good when he was called up for friendlies, like outside of World Cup qualifying. Like, I think he hasn't really taken his opportunity, but he's been playing really well. He has gotten older. He has gotten more experienced. And I think it'd be a good idea to call him into the September camp because he has looked very good recently. At the 8, we have John Lucabusio, who I don't think is going to get called up, but he is a very good player. He had a very underrated game against Jamaica, in my opinion, where I thought he was very good, but we just have so much depth at the center midfield position that I don't think it's really necessary to bring him in. Also at the 8, we got Christian Roldan, who shouldn't be in this team. He is injured right now, which it sucks. Like, I don't want somebody to get injured to be out of this team, but he shouldn't be in the squad to begin with. Like, he's honestly, like, I've talked about the experience of like a Yedlin who has World Cup experience. We have like a Brad Guzan, World Cup experience, John Brooks, Tim Ream. Well, Tim Ream doesn't have World Cup experience, but a lot of Premier League time. Christian Roldan doesn't really have any of that. Like, He's got some time in the MLS. Like, he's not like an old player. Like, he's not a grizzled veteran or anything. And from everything I can see, he's not a leader on this team. Like, I can see leaders on the squad, like, on the field. Like, I thought John Brooks, Weston McKennie, Kellen Acosta, they look like leaders on the field. Roll down, he's not that. I haven't gathered that information on, like, in interviews or anything. He just seems like a nice person, and that's the only reason why he's in this team. People like him. And I'm sorry, that's not enough. He shouldn't be in the squad. He shouldn't be near it. Also at the wing, we have Paul Riola and Jordan Morris. Neither should be near the squad. Jordan Morris, he had potential, but he really wouldn't leave the MLS, and he got bad luck with injuries, is what it is. Paul Riola, I don't think he was ever good at all. I honestly think he should have never been in this team after we failed to qualify for the World Cup back in 2017. We should have never recalled him. But he's here. He should never see the field for us. And then up top, we've got 5 options in Jesus Ferreira, Haji Wright, Jordan Pefok, Josh Sargent, Brendan Vasquez, and I forgot to say 6, Ricardo Pepe. Pepe, he's got a ton of potential, and I think he's been probably our only striker who's done well in our current system, but like, he's not scoring at all. He's barely playing. I don't think you can justify calling him in. Similarly with Vasquez, like, he's had some good MLS form right now. I don't think he'll do well in the Berhalter system. I don't think MLS form translates to an international level, and he probably shouldn't be in the squad either. I understand people want to see him, and he could have some good potential, but I don't think it's worth bringing him in. If we have limited time in September, and I think it'd be more beneficial to experiment with either Gio Reyna or Tim Weah in that 9 position, or a false 9, rather than try a new striker and try to make something work. Then we have Jesus Ferreira. I understand why he's in the squad. I think he's more of a 10 naturally than a 9. He's only in this conversation because we have such a lack of strikers. But he's good on the ball. He can finish well at an MLS level, but once that defense and once the goalkeeping gets up to a higher level, he seems to struggle. And he still is a good player technically. He can connect play, but I think Josh Sargent can as well, and I think he's more likely to score. But he's a solid player, and I do really like his potential. I think he can be good in the future. If he gets to move to Europe soon, I could see him becoming strong, but just at the moment, I don't think he should really be in the team. Josh Sargent, I think he just pays Ferreira, but like a little bit better. Presses a little bit better. I think he can combine better. I think he's got a better chance of scoring. Probably better athlete, better dribbling. He can more varied positionally. Like, he can play out on the wing. Everything that Paul Riola can do, Josh Sargent can as well, and offers more. So I would rather have Josh Sargent in this team than Jesus Ferreira. I think he's just a better player. Then Jordan Pefok, probably the best true finisher on the squad. Just great at scoring. He can score the ball, and he's actually been really improving his game in the Bundesliga, becoming a much more well-rounded striker. He's probably the guy I'd start at the moment. I'm not sure, but he's looking really good. And lastly, we got Haji Wright, who I think he actually fits Berhalter's system the most. He's very big and strong. He's actually not that good in the air, but he has that in it. I think he can win some headers. And as much as we talk about our system, we just kick it up to the strikers more times than we like to admit. Haji can win that. He's very good technically. Great first touch. Probably Ricardo Pepe's the only guy who rivals this hold-up play. He can do that very well. He can put the ball into the back of the net. I think Haji Wright fits the system the best, so I would like him in the squad. So I'd really like to bring in for September Jesus Ferreira, Josh Sargent, Jordan Pefok, and Haji Wright. And for those 14 that I add to the 6 locks, I'd probably bring in Zach Steffen, Ethan Horvath, Gabriel Slonina, John Brooks, Tim Ream, James Sands, Mark McKenzie, Sam Vines, DeAndre Edlin, Johnny Cardoso, Jesus Ferreira, Haji Wright, Jordan Pefok, and Josh Sargent. I think right now my starting lineup probably looks something like Matt Turner in net, then Chris Richards and Cameron Carter-Vickers, Jedi Robinson, Serginho Dest, Tyler Adams at the 6, Gio Reyna and Weston McKennie in front of them, Pulisic on one wing. I think I have Aronson over Tim Weah on the other wing, and strikers completely up in the air. I'd like to try Tim Weah there, maybe Gio Reyna there, move Aronson to the midfield, Weah back to the wing. Then you also have to try Pefok right, Sergeant Ferreira as well. There are a lot of options for this team. I don't think many are particularly great options, but there are a lot of different options that we could try. And yeah, that's my opinions on the squad right now. We've got about 40 players to consider. We're going to have to narrow that down to 26. I don't think it's going to be as good as that. Like Riola or Morris, one of them is definitely in the squad. Aaron Long's probably going to be in there as well, which is disappointing, but I think we got some good players. We definitely have enough to make some noise at the World Cup. I think there's a lot of talent. We're starting to see some success with Americans in Europe. It's looking pretty good. I think there's reason to be optimistic. And yeah, that's all I talk right now. See ya.